Coming up on Network Africa. Sudan's government returns to the capital Khartoum after nearly 3 years of civil war. Ethiopia officially launches construction of $12.5 billion Bishoftu facility, Africa's biggest airport, in a milestone moment for the continent. Plus, BRICS partners continue Will for Peace 2026 naval drills in South African waters. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin this week with stories and happenings that made headlines over this weekend.
Voters in Cotonou on Sunday flocked to polling stations across Benin as the country held parliamentary elections, seen as key tests of the political transition following recent constitutional reforms. The vote takes place amid heightened security and follows an attempted military coup in December, with polling stations showing steady queues of voters casting their ballots and polling station workers registering participants. The elections feature 5 approved parties, including the bloc backing President Patrice Talon and a systemic opposition linked to former President Thomas Boniai. Recent opinion polls indicate that parties aligned with President Patrice Talon are leading, with support estimated at around 55 to 60%, putting them on course to secure a constitutional majority in the National Assembly. On Saturday, naval vessels from various participating countries docked at Simon's Town to begin the Will for Peace 2026, a multinational maritime drill led by China and hosted by South Africa. The South African Navy released footage showing the Russian corvette Stoichi docking at the town's port ahead of the drills, escorted by South African ships as crews prepare ramps and sailors board the vessels. Speaking at the opening ceremony, South African officials highlighted the significance of the drills resulting from cooperation between participating nations.
I stand before you on this beautiful morning with a deep sense of pride and reflection. As I look across this parade ground, what runs through my mind is not only this moment, but the long journey it took to get us here. Today is the culminations of months of plannings, coordinations, and hard work by all participating nations, and the sight of you formed up here is clear evidence that collective effort.
Still on Saturday, hundreds of residents were forced to evacuate their homes as wildfires continued to burn across parts of South Africa's Eastern Cape for a 5th day. At the Oyster Bay area, flames swept through forested land as firefighters worked to contain the blaze. Large sections of farmland, natural vegetation, and residential homes have been affected. The Kruger Municipality Fire Services ordered the evacuation of residents in Lindhof as a precaution following renewed flare-ups near Oyster Bay.
We've got water tankers operating, bringing water in closer to the actual the hot spots, and so while they are roaming around, we've got people on the ground also assisting with providing the necessary refreshments and energizer equipment, from eye drops to lip ices, just to keep the guys going. Motivation obviously is very important, but then it's a matter, it's just at the end of the day, resources is one of the main things, and whenever you get to a disaster like this, costs run away with you. it's becoming crazy, especially if you look at the cost of just the aerial support. It's becoming crazy. That's been running now for I think it's about 4 or 5 days. We've been operating that air support, so it's just getting astronomical.
Fire crews remain on high alert as unpredictable winds continue threatening further flare-ups, with authorities urging residents in affected areas to stay alert and follow official guidance.
So our main stories for today. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has launched the start of construction of what he says will be Africa's biggest airport and the continent's largest aviation infrastructure project. Over the weekend on Saturday, he laid the ceremonial plaque marking the start of work at the site located 45 kilometers southeast of the capital, Addis Ababa. When it reaches its full capacity in 2030, the travel hub will be able to handle some 110 million passengers a year. At an expected cost of $12.5 billion, the airport will feature 4 runways and have parking facilities for up to 270 aircrafts. That is more than 4 times the capacity of Ethiopia's current main airport, Bole, which can handle up to 25 million passengers annually. It is, however, expected to reach saturation within 3 years. Well, let's discuss this further. Joining us now on the program is Ikechi Uko, aviation and travel expert and organizer at Kwaba African Travel Market, to discuss this. Thank you so much for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this airport is projected to handle up to 110 million passengers, making it Africa's largest. From an aviation standpoint, how transformative do you see this scale for Africa's position in global air travel and logistics?
Today, Africans travel through other hubs. You have Dubai, you have Doha, you have France, Paris, and you also have Istanbul. The second biggest airline in Africa is not an African airline. After Ethiopian Airlines, the second biggest airline that flies to Africa is actually Turkish Airlines. You have Air France, you have Qatar and Emirates before you start having African airlines coming up. So having to centralize airports for Africans to travel through is something that Africa needs. The cost of traveling within Africa is very high. It's difficult for us to connect each other. People travel through maybe Europe to get to Africa. In the last, I think it was in 2022, Ethiopia became the biggest hub for African travelers. It took over from Dubai. So we are 1.something billion people, 54, 55 countries, yet we have to travel through Europe, we have to travel through Asia, we have to travel through Middle East to get to other African countries. So Ethiopia is showing vision, Ethiopia is showing courage, and is showing Africans the way to go. So I think this is a very important step for Africa, not only in aviation, for political, for socioeconomic reasons, for the whole vision of Africa as a continent. What Ethiopia is doing it for Africa. And I think other African countries are also having big vision, but this is grand because there is no airport planning at this scale in Africa now. So Ethiopia is setting the pace and we're happy with that.
Yeah, and just like you've mentioned, the Ethiopian Airlines, it's already Africa's most successful carrier. Well, how does this new airport, now strengthen its competitive edge against Middle Eastern and European hubs you've mentioned that, currently dominate long-haul African traffic?
Before 2022, before Addis Ababa became the biggest hub for African travelers, every African depended on a foreign hub to be able to connect where they are going to. If you check all the Middle East airlines, their biggest connection are for African travelers. So Ethiopian Airlines, being the biggest airline in Africa, is actually trying to make sure that we domesticate within Africa all the travelers that have to go through Africa. They connect to more than 136 locations. In Africa, they do more than 56 airports. And for us in Africa, if you see the success they have done, Africa handles only 20% of the global travel out of Africa. Out of that 20%, Ethiopian Airlines carries maybe between 30 to 50% of that. So if we are able to build a massive hub like this, it is possible that we can also scale the number of Africans that use African Airlines. And most African airlines will connect to Addis, and from there, all this complaint about Africans having to travel through Europe to go to another African destinations will begin to go down. And that will reduce the price of travel. That will increase interconnection in Africa. And it also will help build other African carriers. Today, ET is our success story, but it shouldn't only be ET. There are countries that do not have that kind of, you need to fly 6 hours to Addis to be able to fly another 2 hours to another place. But if we're able to build such a hub and all African airlines connect to it, today, as the biggest hub in Africa, it's easier to shorten flight time within Africa, and that will reduce the cost of travel within Africa.
Yeah, and just finally, before I let you go, we've seen large airports like this, facing growing scrutiny over climate impact and sustainability. Now, what should Africa be watching for to ensure that this Bishoftu facility is not just the biggest, but it's also, future ready and environmentally responsible? It's an environmentally responsible aviation hub.
If we look into what Ethiopia has done in the last 3 years under Prime Minister Abiy, you could see they have been intentional. He planted the highest number of trees. I think that was last year. Their own investment in climate change, sustainability, and in their agri program, they had made sure that all the coffee that they are exporting has to be traceable, planted with the best care and the highest standard possible. And what the airline has done, they run the youngest fleet in Africa. They run the newest aircraft that you see flying in Africa is an Ethiopian airline plane. So I believe that they will apply the same sustainability that they have applied to their airlines, to the airports. And also they have been champions in employing women. And that's also part of the sustainability that we need to talk about, the commitment to customer care, the commitment to the environment, the commitment to women in Africa. So in those 3 areas, the airline has done well, has won awards. And I'm happy that the Prime Minister says that this airport will serve all the Ethiopian airline has set high standards in so many things. So I think they will apply it to the airport. And from what I've seen, when they set the targets, they always meet, and sometimes they deliver before the time they have given to themselves.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Mr. Ikechi Uko, aviation and travel expert and the organizer, Kwaba African Travel Markets. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Let's continue on Network Africa. Sudan's military-led government has returned to the country's capital. This is coming nearly 3 years of operating from its wartime base in the eastern city of Port Sudan. Sudan's Prime Minister Camille Idris says the government of hope is officially back in Khartoum and will begin efforts to improve services for the city's residents. The military was forced out by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, when civil war erupted between the two sides in 2023. The army recaptured it in a significant breakthrough last March. According to the United Nations, Khartoum has been recovering from years of fighting. Roughly 5 million people fled the city at the height of the conflict. Let's take a break now on the program. Still to come. Nigeria's Minister of Defense reaffirms commitment to peace and security in the country at the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Church service. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is in the United Arab Emirates to participate in the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, ASDW. Ahead of the ceremony, President Ramaphosa will also hold bilateral talks with President of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. South Africa and the UAE maintain strong diplomatic and economic ties, with the UAE being one of the South African major investors in sectors like transport and logistics. Well, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is also another African president that is in Abu Dhabi to participate in this summit. The president touched down late Sunday night and was received by Sheikh Shakbut Nahyan Al Nahyan, the Minister of State in the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Well, this week-long summit, which began January 11, is an annual platform that convenes world leaders from government, business, and civil society to shape the future of sustainable development. Back here in Nigeria, the nation's capital, Abuja, the federal government has reaffirmed President Bola Tinubu's commitment to restoring peace and security in the country, while commending the sacrifices of members of the Nigerian armed forces. Speaking at a special interdenominational church service in Abuja to mark this year's Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day, the Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, assured Nigerians that the president remains committed to supporting the welfare of security agencies and also called for national unity. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
The National Christian Center Abuja is filled with members of the Nigerian Armed Forces and their spouses who have converged for a special interdenominational church service as part of activities lined up for the commemoration of the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day. In attendance are some principal officers of the National Assembly, the Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, the Chief of Defense Intelligence, Lieutenant General Emmanuel Ondiandeye, and the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kayode Egbetukun, and their spouses, as well as heads of some paramilitary agencies. It's a moment of reflection and for the celebration of the valor and sacrifices of members of the Nigerian Armed Forces. It is also a time to draw inspiration from God's word.
Instead of your shame, you shall have double honor, and instead of confusion, they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore, in their land, they shall possess double, everlasting joy shall be theirs.
For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God.
Underscoring the need to appreciate the sacrifices of members of the Nigerian Armed Forces, the guest speaker urges them to resist the temptation of wanting to take over power.
As ordinary citizens like us are hearing stories of what is happening in other West African countries, the way the militaries are taking over, we appeal to you, don't think about it.
The Minister of Defense and the representative of the Senate President reaffirmed the federal government's commitment to tackling insecurity in Nigeria.
We honor with deep reverence the brave men and women who paid their supreme price in service to our nation. We also celebrate those who continue to serve with courage and dedication, including the spouses and the family members. The President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria is doing everything possible to ensure that the armed forces of Nigeria and indeed other security agencies are well taken care of, well equipped, to ensure that they perform their task credibly.
Dear beloved, I want to assure you that effort is in top gear to restore Nigeria
as the most peaceful country and the most secured country in Africa.
Highlights of the service are intercessory prayers for the leadership of the country, the protection of members of the armed forces, the unity of Nigeria, and for the families of the fallen heroes, among others. From the National Christian Center, Abuja, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, the Lagos State Ferry Services has reaffirmed the growing importance of water transportation to the state's economy and mobility, even as it celebrates Ignite Lagos 3.0, Light the Waterway initiative in 2026. Speaking during the event, the managing director of LAG Ferry, Mr. Abdulbak Balogun, says the state government is set to introduce electric boats into the Lagos Ferry Services fleets within this year to enhance affordable and sustainable, environmentally friendly public transportation.
Ignite Lagos 3.0 comes with another form of excitement as Lagos residents show up for the 2026 Light the Waterways initiative put together by the Lagos State Ferry Services. LAG Ferry uses the annual initiative to promote waterways tourism in Lagos State. Unlike the conventional social events held on land, Ignite Lagos celebration holds on the waterways, showcasing the vast potential of Lagos inland waters, a beautiful sight to behold at night.
It's a water tourism initiative. It's one of the brand of the Lagos State Ferry Services, where we welcome all people of Lagos to the beginning of the year to usher them into a new year our own way. You know, there have been different kind of social events everywhere, but this time around, you're going to have it on the waterway. And in a way, we are demonstrating the potential of the waterway to the entire world. That is, this is the abundance of waterway in Lagos State, and this is LAG Ferry, an agency of Lagos State government responsible for water tourism, water transportation.
The managing director of Lagos Ferry Services says it has successfully transported 4.4 million passengers since the commencement of operations on February 4, 2020, reflecting the growing acceptance of water transportation among Lagos residents and encouragement to add more boats to the fleet.
Yeah, we are going sustainable. You know, that's the next thing for us. And you know, our team for last year have been sustainable sailing. So this time around in 2026, we're advancing the sustainable to ensure that the sustainable operation of Lagos State Ferry Services or water transportation in Lagos State is endeared to everybody. For instance, this year, we're going to introduce electric boats into our fleet. So and that one will drastically bring down the cost of, you know, the cost of fare. So it shows that Lagosians are coming to embrace, you know, the beauty of water transportation and, you know, going ahead with the leisures on the beaches, you know, boat beach houses, and there's no way they can get there without a boat. So Lagos State Ferry Service, that's where we plug in.
Water transportation has become a popular alternative means for daily commuting in Lagos, and LAG Ferry reassures residents and the global community that the Lagos waterways remain safe, fast, and positioned as the next frontier for economic development in Lagos State.
And as we end the program today, here's a fun fact about the continent. Did you know Lake Malawi is a global biodiversity hotspot, holding more fish species, as over 1,000 mostly endemic chilids, than any other lake in the world? It's home to over 1,000 fish species, predominantly the unique chilids found nowhere else, with some estimates suggesting even more species await discovery in that lake. This makes it a prime natural laboratory for studying evolution and adaptation, though it faces threats from pollution, climate change, and overfishing. And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.